Ambassador Christopher Hill has served as the United States Ambassador to Korea. He also was the lead of the six-party talks between the six nations working with the denuclearization of North Korea. Ambassador Hill joined with us in the Washington Times fact finders on many occasions, and because of that and his notoriety in Korea in the highest levels of the Blue House, intelligence, and the Parliament, we had most productive meetings and friendships that developed between America, the United States, and Korea. He also is working on the Balkans Initiative, as he also was ambassador to Albania and also to Macedonia, as well as Poland, and later he was ambassador to Iraq. He's an outstanding diplomat. He's currently the Dean of the Joseph Corbell School of International Studies at Denver University. Welcome with me at this time, United States Ambassador Christopher Hill.
Thank you very much, Michael, for those very kind words. And let me join Dr. Walsh in expressing my deep gratitude to be part of this summit, to have this opportunity to talk to you about subjects that are indeed very, very dear to my heart. The principal of those being peace. It's no question that the world has talked about these issues for many years. We understand the importance of them, and yet peace and prosperity and universal values have indeed been elusive concepts for many years. And it is altogether fitting that we should come together and to discuss these, to see what has gone wrong, to see what we have done right, and in a spirit of optimism and common purpose to come together and push forward again. This is a year, 2020, a year of anniversaries. We've discussed some of those. It's also a year of some anniversaries that have not yet been addressed, and one of those, of course, is the 75th year, the 75th anniversary that the Korean Peninsula has been so brutally and so wrongfully divided. This was not something the Korean people wanted to do. Indeed, the division of their peninsula was not something they had much to do with at all. It happened as a result, at the end of World War II, a particularly tragic series of events for humankind. And that end of World War II has had much unfinished business to it, and one of the aspects of it has been the division, the continued division of the Korean Peninsula. But even though we thought for some time that it could not be worse than to have the Korean Peninsula so brutally divided, it has become worse since those terrible days in the 1950s, because what we have on the northern half of the Korean Peninsula is a country that has not dedicated itself to interdependence, has not dedicated itself to mutual prosperity or to universal values. Rather, we have a country in the northern part of the Korean Peninsula that has dedicated itself to the fabrication and the capacity to deliver nuclear weapons. I don't have to tell anybody about what a terrible prospect this is when countries try to develop nuclear weapons as a means, really, to intimidate their neighbors and to somehow get their way in the world through this most terrible technology. But that is indeed what we have in North Korea. The United States has taken part in efforts with other countries to try to deal with this, and I believe the United States will continue to do this, but I also believe that it is not just the responsibility of the United States to deal with North Korea's nuclear ambitions, but rather it should be all of our common purpose in the context of these values that we are discussing, to understand that we must in some way persuade North Korea of the need to do away with these nuclear weapons. There are those who say this cannot be done peacefully, that somehow more violence will be necessary to convince the North Koreans. I disagree with that, and I think to use those means is probably to end up with a situation that could be even worse than the one we have today. I think it is all our purpose, really, to convince North Korea that they could have a better prospect, a better future without nuclear weapons than with nuclear weapons. This was certainly the animating concept of President Trump meeting with the North Korean leader back in Singapore a year and a half ago, to convince that North Korean leader that we will be prepared to work with North Korea in the future in a way that will be positive for them and positive to the rest of us, and in a way to say that if North Korea is prepared to go away from this path and to join a path of interdependence, of mutual prosperity, and a path that shares our values, we are prepared to stay with North Korea and work with them. But there must be one very fundamental commitment, and that is to do away with these nuclear weapons and these plans for nuclear weapons. North Korea needs to understand that the United States is extremely proud of the relationship we have with the Republic of Korea, a relationship that really is a sharing of, to be sure, our prosperity and certainly a sense of our interdependence, but also, of course, of our values. It is truly one of the best relationships the United States has in the world, and it will not be shaken and it will not be broken by North Korean efforts to intimidate either the United States or the Republic of Korea. I think we need to look at the problems, the difficulties of getting North Korea to give up their nuclear weapons as really an opportunity for us to spread the values of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. I think everybody, not just the United States President, but rather everybody should understand the role that everybody has in making sure that we do not see these weapons of mass destruction replicated in more countries, and that North Korea should come to understand that they could have a better future without them than they do with them. We need to do this in a hand of friendship. We need to do this through peaceful means, but we cannot do this if what we say to the North Koreans is somehow we can accept some nuclear weapons or some part of their nuclear weapons program. To open your hand in friendship, to do so in a peaceful means, does not mean to give up your values. If North Korea is accepted as a nuclear weapon state, who is next? And I would suspect that this problem will go on and on as long as there's a perception that we are not serious about dealing with it. I hope that as we go through this 75th year of this division of the Korean Peninsula, it will come to light that there is some end to this, that the Korean people do have the prospect of coming together, even if the arrangements are just devised and developed by the Korean people, not by the rest of us, but with the one very fundamental point that we cannot accept the fabrication, the construction of deliverable nuclear weapons on the Korean Peninsula. The U.S. and the Korean people have come a long way in our capacities to understand each other, to work with each other, and to dedicate a common future to each other. And we are prepared to do this with the North Koreans, provided they understand that their nuclear weapons ambitions are an impediment that cannot be broken until the North Koreans come to understand that they must give up these weapons. President Trump is engaged on this. His predecessors have been engaged on this. And when President Trump leaves office, his successor, no doubt, will also be engaged in this. We have many options for dealing with this problem. We do not have the option of walking away, and we will continue to be very much fixated on the need to prevent other countries from becoming nuclear weapon states, and then to address the possibility that those of us who already have nuclear weapons will ultimately be able to give those up, and we can look forward to the dream of a nuclear weapons-free world. So I would like to say finally that as this World Peace Summit meets in 2020, we understand that there are great challenges ahead, and I think realistically speaking, we understand that we cannot solve all the problems in 1 year, and certainly not in one meeting. But I think we need to rededicate ourselves to the task of going forward, to the task of trying to put our differences, our petty differences, behind us, and to the task of coming together around certain values and around the idea that we are one world, a very small world in the overall universe, and to understand that there are certain things that we must deal with, that we must take on, that we must be courageous about, and we must never turn away from. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Hill, for your service for world peace.